Hey, I don't really care about some group chat right now while you guys keep shooting up all of my
Oh, no, no,
friends.
no, Jack, you can
Yeah, I really
condemn
don't
both. You
care.
can
No,
be
I
Yeah,
would
but I
you
use
can
do
that kind
think,
of
condemn both.
language.
But Jack, I do think for consistency, actually, you should care.
This is a follow-up to a video we did yesterday about Democratic influencer Harry Sisson's recent appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored after Sisson was targeted specifically by Donald Trump. And in that video that we did, we also had an interview with Sisson himself about both his Piers appearance and the fact that he was targeted by the sitting president. Nevertheless, I want to circle back to the broader episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored in which that took place, because there was an interesting moment during the course of the debate in which Piers Morgan, who, much to my frustration, tends to grade Trump and MAGA on a curve, actually stood up and went toe-to-toe with MAGA influencer and conspiracy theorist Jack Posobiec and repeatedly called him out for his refusal to condemn hateful rhetoric on his side of the aisle. And I think it's important when people like Piers do that. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at here, so let's dive right in.
Well, I mean, what is your reaction first to De Niro, and then maybe talk about your post and whether you regret using the Nazi language?
Well, I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to start with mine and then talk about what De Niro said. So first and foremost, in that ad that Donald Trump posted, the words "Unified Reich" were on a newspaper that appeared in the ad that was like praising Donald Trump. So if the Trump campaign is putting that in an ad, I think that deserves to be called out. Number two, I don't think anybody in this debate can name me a high-ranking elected Democrat who has called Donald Trump Hitler. I don't think anybody can. Number three, one of the only high-ranking politicians in American politics who called Donald Trump Hitler is J.D. Vance, calling him America's Hitler. Now, working backwards to what Robert De Niro said, I think what Robert De Niro said is a little distasteful. I think he certainly could have worded it better, taken out some charged language. But I just see these recent stories about Republicans, whether it be the youth leader group chat or Paul Ingrassia, who is still Donald Trump's nominee to lead the office of special counsel, pledging affinity for Hitler. Peter Gunta, who is the chair of the Young Republicans Party in New York, said, "I love Hitler" in a chat. Other people were musing about refitting gas chambers so they, quote, fit the Hitler aesthetic. Paul Ingrassia, the special counsel nominee, just got caught in other leaked texts saying that he has a Nazi streak. So when these high-ranking Republicans who are working in the party right now are pledging affinity to Hitler, I think that deserves to be called out. Not that every Republican should be painted as that. I certainly don't do that. I don't agree with that. But can the conservatives on this panel condemn, number one, Donald Trump's nominee, and number two, can they condemn the youth Republican group chat? And then number three, if they write it off as a joke, then why were they so against people joking about Charlie Kirk? I never joked about Charlie Kirk, but they pick and choose when humor can be applied in politics. And when you're pledging affinity to Hitler, that's a joke, according to many.
Well, I said, look, from my point of view, I said,
By the way, I'd be happy to answer the question about whether or not a high-ranking Democrat.
So let's stop right there for just a second. Now, what they're going to go on to do, there's a Daily Wire journalist there, and the blonde, and then there's Jack Posobiec, the MAGA Republican lunatic. So they'll say, well, these high-ranking Republicans have used Trump and Hitler in the same sentence. Kamala Harris said that Trump had an affinity for Hitler, which was reportedly true. Apparently, one of the few books, reportedly, according to one of his ex-wives, was Mein Kampf, which was, Hitler's treatise before his rise to power. That's still not calling Trump Hitler. The only one to actually do that we're aware of is his current vice president, J.D. Vance. So they tried to go for the gotcha there, but they actually missed Harry's point, which is show me a high-ranking Republican who called him Hitler, not said he had an affinity for Hitler based on credible reporting. So again, they failed to deliver that. But Harry makes just a bunch of really good points. Now, I will point out that Paul Ingrassia, who we did a video about, this is the guy who said he had, a Hitler streak in him from time to time. After this was recorded, he actually withdrew his name from consideration to lead the office of special counsel because he recognized that he was probably not going to get the votes to do it. But Trump did not pull his nomination. He waited for this guy to do it, and he's still a Trump administration official nevertheless. So really good points by Harry Sisson every which way, which is that when it comes to humor, Republicans are total hypocrites. MAGA is hypocrites. They love making fun and saying the most incendiary, racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, xenophobic, cruel things about liberals, progressives, Democrats, blue cities, blue states, their political opponents, the media, minorities, marginalized groups, etc. And it's like, hey, snowflake, we're just making a joke. But then they draw the line and say, well, you can't joke about our friend Charlie Kirk. It's like, no, it's got to go work both ways, right? Unless, of course, you all are the ultimate snowflakes who want to be able to pick and choose when and where humor applies. Now, in this clip, this is where you start to see a more fulsome pushback by Piers Morgan against Jack Posobiec, which is, again, rare. When it comes to domestic politics, Piers Morgan tends to grade Trump on a curve. It's maddening because otherwise he's a very credible journalist and debate moderator. But with Trump, he's got a blind spot a mile wide. So it's good to see some pushback here. Let's take a look.
She said, how did that happen? I'd watch newsreels and I'd see this guy standing there ranting and raving and so on. It happens all the time. And Harry, I would say JD Vance was totally wrong to say it about Trump as well. I think the young conservatives who've been exposed by this Politico expose were totally wrong too.
Can they say that?
Some grotesque stuff in there.
I have no problem saying that, Harry. But there are
Jack,
sitting
can you say
members
that?
like Jasmine Crockett, who literally just weeks ago called Donald Trump a wannabe leader. I mean, it's crazy.
Jack, can you say that? Jack, can you say that? Can you condemn the Young Republicans group chat where they pledged affinity for Hitler?
Hey, I don't really care about some group chat right now while you guys keep shooting up all of my friends.
Oh, no. Jack, you can condemn both.
Care.
You can
no,
be.
Yeah, but Jack, I do think for consistency, actually, you should care. You know, JD Vance tried to downplay what the young Republicans were saying in these racist, sexist messages. One guy said that rape was
I don't
epic.
think JD Vance said anything wrong.
One said rape was epic. Another said, I love Hitler. He tried to say they're all very young, but actually some of them were nearly his age. The reality is that kids do stupid things to tell edgy, offensive jokes.
Well,
he
Piers,
said, but they're actually, but they are still part of the conservative movement.
On top of rooftops outside of the No Kings rallies, shooting at Democrats.
But that's terrible too.
You're being so slimy. You're being so slimy.
Which they don't happen. So I'm sorry.
Jack,
until we deal with the people who keep shooting at my friends, then I'm not really concerned about some group chat.
You can condemn both.
Those guys.
You can condemn both.
Those guys.
Jack, you can condemn both.
I think you can easily condemn all. I think you can actually.
Wait.
Well, hang on. No, you wait, Harry. If you're going to be intellectually honest, actually, it should be easy to condemn all of these things. All the invoking of the Nazis and Hitler should be condemned. It's never appropriate because Hitler and the Nazis were a gazillion times worse than anything we're seeing here. I think the messaging between these young Republicans was appalling and should be condemned. I think that JD Vance trying to defend it and calling Trump Hitler before, that should be easily condemned. All these things should be condemned. The killing of Charlie Kirk should be absolutely condemned by any.
And it was condemned by Democratic leaders, elected officials. The people who were making fun of Charlie Kirk or weren't condemning the violence were not leaders within the Democratic Party. That's one of the fundamental differences, is that party leadership is very different between the two political parties. Party leadership, like Mike Lee, Republican senator, or Don Jr., who is, you know, at times his father's de facto chief of staff, who wields enormous influence over his father, making fun of violence against Democratic senators or Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota. That's what Mike Waltz did. Don Jr. was making fun of the brutal assassination attempt on Nancy Pelosi, which actually led to her husband being nearly killed with a hammer by a deranged Trump supporter. So again, Jack Posobiec here just looks so bad. You have to fuck this up so spectacularly to get Piers Morgan, not just to make one comment, but to actually go out of his way for minutes at a time to say, Jack, this is hypocritical, it's inconsistent, you should be able to easily condemn this, and him appealing to, well, they shot at my friends. Well, who's they, number one, and number two, even if your side is the target of hateful rhetoric, you should be able to condemn your side's hateful rhetoric against the opposition, particularly if, as Harry has done here, Harry went out of his way to condemn the sort of... So it would be one thing if Harry's like, no, I'm not going to condemn any hateful rhetoric against Republicans, but I do demand that Republicans condemn their own hateful rhetoric. Then I would at least understand Jack going, well, fuck that. No, we're going to play by one set of standards here. But that's not what Harry did, because Harry's morally superior to Jack Posobiec. He's principled. He's able to say, yeah, when my side engages in hateful rhetoric, I have no problem condemning it. Jack Posobiec can't and won't do it because he's a loser. And it's good on Piers Morgan for calling him out. Even again, the Isabel, I think her name is Isabel Brown, if I remember correctly, the Daily Wire host in the red shirt, even she was like, yeah, I can condemn that. Okay. So here's one more clip from this exchange.
Sock puppets in Kiev right now. And their armed
well, it seems like
forces
Jack
at
wouldn't
war.
condemn that. I don't think Jack would condemn that. I don't think because he can't condemn two things at once. He's focused entirely on one topic. He can't condemn that. So you can't talk to Jack about it. But Isabel and I, we can discuss that with you as well. Jack is he's in his own world. So
Well, Jack,
Harry,
you want to come
have
in?
you taken a shower yet to get the president's mud and goo off of you?
I don't have you
Your
crawled
hair
out of
looks
Donald
nice,
Trump's
so you must have
colon
used
yet.
some conditioner.
I did take a shower. Have you crawled out of Donald Trump's colon yet? I know it's hard. It's dark in there with everything you do to suck up to him on a daily basis.
See,
I'm not
again,
sure, have you
Piers,
gotten
like
out
this
there
is
yet
what
or
they
no?
do. It's just constant crudity.
Oh,
And they get so
yeah.
he's so upset
So when you give
President
it to
Trump
me,
responds and
when
I know-
you give
I
it
wanna
to
make a point
me,
here.
I can't give it back. Come on, man.
Here
You give it to me, I
here's
can't give
Harry,
it
who
back
came
to
on
you.
here
That's
and said
you
the
get
president
defended.
shouldn't act like
To
that.
be
and then
fair,
he
Jack,
engages it in himself. He does
you
the
did
exact
throw
same
the
thing.
first unclean slur.
Yeah,
So,
exactly, Pierce. He threw the first punch and he gets mad when I give it back to him. He
here's my
cries.
point.
He cries
goes
victim.
right
It's
for it.
crazy.
He goes right for it.
So that's pretty embarrassing. Again, Jack Posobiec totally outwitted and humiliated by Harry Sisson. This is a microcosm of MAGA snowflakery. This is beautiful. Where even Piers Morgan on this lopsided panel, because note, Piers is diet MAGA. He grades Trump on a curve, so he's more conservative, certainly, than liberal when it comes to Trump debates. You have Scott Horton, who's like this foreign policy podcaster. He also is much more favorable towards Donald Trump than the Democrats. You have a Daily Wire contributor, Isabel Brown, again, I think is her name. So she's a conservative. And then you have Jack Posobiec, again, who's a MAGA conspiracy theorist and loser. So Harry, at 23 years old, not just targeted by Donald Trump, literally outnumbered 4-1. And that's how badly it went for Jack, because Jack is such an unprincipled, hypocritical loser, where even Piers Morgan's like, well, wait a minute. You actively insulted him first. And even I have to admit, like, you threw the first proverbial punch and you're upset, you're bitching that Harry threw one back. That's a microcosm of the hypocrisy which animates the MAGA. Jack is too stupid to recognize what he did. You can see he's kind of stunned because he's used to that sense of entitlement. MAGA genuinely believes that they can say whatever they want about whomever they want with impunity, whenever they want, and that their opponents can't even return a fraction of that energy. In other words, they get the right to dish it out, but they do not have to take it. You, liberals, progressives, Democrats, women, minorities, marginalized groups, the media, people who criticize Donald Trump, you must take it, but you cannot dish it out. And even Piers Morgan's like, yeah, this is pretty fucking pathetic. And indeed it is, Piers. I hope your eyes have been opened. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.